Hello, everybody. It is time for another reading vlog. I actually have to do this one today because, like I said last time, I borrowed a whole box of Discworld books, but I have to give them back today because I am actually moving out. I am moving out to go study, and so I have to give the box of books back. So I am doing the book review today. Um, so last time I reviewed a I don't know if you can hear it. There's a couple of dogs fighting. Just ignore them. Last time I already reviewed a couple of the books I'd read, and I have read some more. I've got a whole stack here, actually. Look at this. Look at that, in a couple of weeks. And here's the ones that I had reviewed already. So I did read these in publication order, but I don't exactly remember what the publication order is. So we're just going to start. I'm just going to look and see. I'm going to do it by genre, actually, by like not genre, but like by sub story, by subplot. Okay, so the first one I'm starting with is Small Gods. This one isn't part of a subplot. It's kind of its own standalone book. It's a satire on religion and violence that is perpetrated in the name of religion. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I am Christian, and because of that, most of these criticisms I have heard quite a few times already, and I've heard them refuted quite a few times already. So for me, that this did make this book a bit less enjoyable because it's like none of the messaging was new to me. You know, it's like okay, I've heard all of these points before, but it's still interesting. The book was a bit slow until we actually left the main city. We start in the capital city of Omnia, and that part is a bit slow. But then once we leave, the story definitely picks up. We get new characters and new settings, and it was very interesting. Yeah, just a lot of cool things happened. So yeah, as a standalone, it's quite strong. The humor is funny, so I still enjoyed it. Hey guys, so I didn't get to finish that video earlier because I had a farewell party because I was leaving. Like I said, I don't know if I said that, leaving for uni. Um, but I'm here now. I am now in a different continent. I got off the plane yesterday, so I'm a bit tired. But I thought I'd record a video because I just wanted to get that done. In the meantime, I am cutting mushrooms for dinner. So, I think I got through Small Gods. Yes, okay. And that was the only standalone I read. Let's move on to the Rincewind series. I read which book did I read? The one where he goes to like China. It's not China, but the China Standing. Which one was that? Oh, right. It was Interesting Times. I straight up zoned out for a second there. Sorry. Anyway, gonna be honest. Rincewind is not necessarily my favorite character. Um, he's kind of this guy who manages to get into trouble all the time. This book was fine. It's just not my style. I think not my style of story. I don't really care for the barbarians. Um, yeah, I did find it fun to see Two Flower again. He was kind of one of my. I enjoyed him a lot the first time I read about him. But yeah, Rincewind's just not my favorite guy. Then let's just move on. We've got the Death series. Now, I haven't really got all of the backstory for the Death books because the lady I'm borrowing the books from doesn't have all of them. So I was kind of missing the backstory when I got to Soul Music. But thankfully, the way Terry Pratchett writes, it's very clear what's going on. Like he tells you the backstory very well. So I got it. I'm also reading Hogfather now. I'm enjoying the Death books. They're quite interesting. It took me a while to get into because they're a bit more introspective. Yeah, especially soul music about what's allowed and what isn't and stuff like that. But I find Death actually quite funny to see. There's a mystery in the book I'm reading right now in Hogfather. The one about soul music was fun. I enjoy all the wizard cameos, especially with Rid Cully. Although I feel quite bad for the Bursar. He starts out being pretty normal in the one of the first wizard books, but then by the time soul music comes around, that man is just completely gone crazy because of how because of how stressful his job is. I feel bad for him. Then I'm also reading the Witches series. Those are very fun. I really enjoy them. The one where they have to stop the princess from marrying the prince was fun, but for me, the witches get so creative that at the end sometimes I'm confused as to how it worked, the magic they were doing. Um, I wasn't entirely sure what was going on with the whole voodoo doll at the end. I was a bit confused. Um, but it's still really enjoyable. I really like how the characters in Witches, like not Nanny Og, but Weatherwax, how her character is very clear, but it's implicit. So if you only look at how she's described, she would seem to be a horrible, mean person. But then you look at like the more implicit facts about her, and you suddenly see that she does care and all those things. What was it called? I don't remember. And then I read one where they go to a no, where there's fairies. That one was really good. I especially loved the story for Margaret. I wish that had been developed, like had more resolution at the end, because basically it turns out that her wedding was planned behind her back and she didn't get a choice in the whole affair, and she feels insulted. And she confronts Granny with this because Granny Weatherwax is the one who did it, and then they're just like, well, the other witches are just like, well, would you have been able to make a decision though? Like, did we not just do you a favor? Which is true because Margaret is kind of like the indecisive one, but at the same time, it's also though Granny isn't really the type of character to say sorry, so I don't really know what exactly I was expecting. Um, yeah, I don't know. It was kind of the implicit thing where it's like, no, actually, it seemed to be implied that the witches, at the end of the day, it was best for Margaret that the witches were getting involved. I don't know, but I like the story. It was a bit darker, I guess, than the earlier ones. There was a bit more actual scary peril. I really loved the scene with Sean and Margaret in the castle when the fairies come. That was really cool, really well done. Oh, also, the backstory for Rid Cully and Granny Weatherwax gets changed. The backstory used to be that Esk, Granny Weatherwax's granddaughter, or no, I don't know if she was actually like biologically her granddaughter, but her granddaughter wanted to become a wizard, and then she went to the university. We never hear from her again, and that's where she met Granny Weatherwax, met Ritgully, and where they kind of became a thing ish. And now suddenly this Esk is nowhere to be found, and the story is that Granny Weatherwax and Ritgully had a fling back in the day when they were teenagers, but then he left to go study and never came back, which is weird because in the original book where we first meet him, the whole point was actually that he loved living out in the country and was annoyed to have to be called to the university, and he just wanted to go back to his living in the country. So he kind of I don't know why, but Pratchett kind of changed that. For me, I don't like that. I want stuff to have continuity. I also want to know what happened to Esk. I think that could have been a really interesting story to learn more about, but it's fine. And then I read Masquerade, which is kind of a spin-off of the Phantom of the Opera, which I have watched. I watched the Prince Albert one, but it was ages ago, and the plots I don't really remember exactly what was going on. I just mainly remember the music. Maybe it's just me, but also I feel like the Phantom of the Opera isn't super plot heavy from what I remember. But maybe that's just because I didn't pick it up the first time. Maybe there's just lots that I forgot. Um, but anyway, that one is pretty fun. I did feel really bad for Agnes though. Like she doesn't want to be a witch. She just wants to do her thing, but nobody appreciates her. It's just kind of like it's kind of this idea that witchiness is like it's part of who you are, and so she's just weird, and she sees things differently from other people, and so because of that, other people aren't going to really accept her, and so she doesn't really have that much of a choice. She's just going to being a witch is like her main job prospect, kind of. This book, though, had a lot of really annoying characters, Masquerade. Um, so that was a bit difficult to get through. Like, I know the point was that they were annoying, but Terry Pratchett did it so well that I was a bit tired of them at the end. I wanted Christine to, like, stop talking. But yeah, fun book. I really, really loved Walter in this one as well. I liked, who was it? I don't remember his name. He's the guy who there's a plot twist surrounding this guy, and he seems really suspicious. Throughout the story, I liked him as well. Yeah, I think the witches ones are usually the ones that are most complicated because there's like, it's kind of like what the witches themselves say. There's a lot of headology, so a lot of tricking people, a lot of fooling people, and the villains also tend to have more complicated stuff going on. So I like that, but it does mean that sometimes I miss stuff. I think the only one that's left and that I left for last on purpose is the Night Watch series, because I love those. Those are actually my very favorites now. The Witches used to be my favorites, um, and they are still nice, but I really, really love the Watch because they're. See, the Witches, Granny Weatherwax has an interesting personality, and Nanny Ogg has one, but Nanny Ogg is already quite a bit simpler, and that's about it. In the Watch, everybody has an interesting personality, and they all combine to make super cool stories. Um, I already said I loved Guards. This time around, I first read Men at Arms. It was about a dangerous weapon that gets stolen. There's a werewolf, and what I loved about Men at Arms was the whole troll versus dwarf thing, because the trolls and the dwarfs hate each other, but then detritus becomes a Night Watch guard, and a dwarf gets put on the same team. Like they become a duo. They have to become a duo to work together against crime, and then they become best friends, and it's just so cute. Also very sad. How dare Terry Pratchett, honestly, but it's so cute, and I really, really love that aspect. And then we had Feet of Clay, which is about golems, who are kind of like robots, which is so funny because right now, we're having the whole robot racism thing going on. But yeah, they're kind of like robots, but also not really. They can actually feel emotion. It's just that they can't express it. And Vimes is actually a bit racist against them, which I love about his character because he's actually sometimes really messed up as well. Not really messed up, but he's not a perfect person. But the thing is, and the reason he actually stops being racist is because somebody else is doing it. That's what I love about Vimes. He does things out of spite. So he actually doesn't stop being racist. He just actually gives a golem a spot on the Night Watch simply because somebody else was being to annoy somebody else. So some guy talking. Some guy he doesn't like the rich people. He doesn't mind riches. I guess he just doesn't like people who are pretentious. And so some pretentious guy comes along and is super rude to this golem that he's escorting or whatever. And then just to annoy the rich guy, Vimes is like, "Oh, really? I'm going to recruit him now, actually." And it is really great. So yeah, I really love the way Terry Pratchett writes. Um, yeah, that's also a thing. I was reading Terry Pratchett, and then I was also reading another fantasy book on the side, but it was more of a generic writing style. And I will say, I think Terry Pratchett has kind of spoiled me because of how he writes, because he writes so entertainingly that even when I don't particularly care, like with Death, I didn't really care that much. Um, and with Rincewind as well, normally I wouldn't really read that book, but because of how Pratchett writes, it's still super entertaining. But now when I read other fantasy books, I'm kind of like, this is boring. Write more interestingly. Um, so he has spoiled me a little bit. Yeah, that's also a thing. I was reading Terry Pratchett, and then I was also reading another fantasy book on the side, but it was more of a generic writing style. And I will say, I think Terry Pratchett has kind of spoiled me because of how he writes, because he writes so entertainingly that even when I don't particularly care, like with Death, I didn't really care that much. Um, and with Rincewind as well, normally I wouldn't really read that book, but because of how Pratchett writes, it's still super entertaining. But now when I read other fantasy books, I'm kind of like, this is boring. Yeah, okay. I am. There might have been something that I forgot. I am going to go cut some more stuff. Um, bye. See you next time.